Right. So, in regard to the Guidewire learning, first of all, we must be knowing about the difference between the role of an architect and a developer because many people are aware of it about the role of a developer as well as an architect. But in this session, I am going to discuss about in detailed part, right? So, in micro level understanding, right from the phase wise, right from the requirement analysis wise, right from the product model design wise, and all. How different the role of an developer as well as an architect in the guideware environment. When we see from the requirement analysis phase, being an architect have to understand the end-to-end business and as well as whatever the end-to-end business do we have. Let's say, for example, we are working on insurance claims, etc. So the claim life cycle. So they must be knowing about the end-to-end business of a particular insurance claim process, right from FNOL process to the claim submissions and claim clearances. At the same time, in regard to the end-to-end process, being an architect, we need to provide a solution, which is nothing but a technical roadmap. But if you see the role of a developer, developers see the requirements from the functional perspective. Because now and then when we follow the traditional way of approach, we follow the functional requirements, all these. When we follow agile, so we generally write user stories, all that. So these are the two fundamental differences we should understand from the architect to developer from the requirement analysis point of view. Second, when we see this from the product model side, architects provide a blueprint of the product. Let's say you want to come up with new line of businesses. So you want to have a blueprint of the product, uh, what we are about to develop. Developers subsequently will build the product. When it comes to the rating part is concerned, architect team has to develop. Being an architect, we have to develop an architecture. We need to understand what kind of patterns, because when we are developing any system designing, we need to provide solutions for some complex issues, so that we have to use some different design patterns. Either it can be creational patterns or it can be behavioral patterns. In that we have some factory method, all that, right? So understanding what design pattern can be used for which situation and how this can be. This understanding is required being an architect. At the same time, we must ensure performance of the application should be the high priority item here. From a developer perspective, developer has to implement the logic for the architecture that is detailed by the architect role. When we are focusing on the integration part, architects design APIs. Either it can be of any API, right? So matter to the fact, like majority generally we are using RESTful API, right? So designing API. At the same time, designing this messaging patterns, everything will be part of architect role. Whereas from the developer role and all, the developer do the coding plugins. At the same time, they do mapping, whatever the error handling, etc. Everything will be done by the developer. When we are focusing on the data model side, whatever the entity relationship modeling view, that is something being an architect we have to. Entity relationship diagrams will be prepared by the database team, ER diagrams, all that, but entity relationship modeling has to be done by the architect. Whatever the implementation for these extensions as well as the type list will be done by the developer. User interface area where architect have to approve the architecture, developer has to create whatever the page configurations you want to do. Let's say you want to add some new fields to the existing one or changing the existing fields. Everything will be done by the development team. When it comes to the governance process is concerned, reviewing these governance structure, what are the policies, procedures, standards that we have. When we follow DevOps environment, aligning this to the DevOps environment. This is all something the governance will be done by an architect. Execution of code, performing configuration will be done by the development team subsequently. When we are working on the migration side of the application, strategy has to be built by an architect. Building different ETL scripts and as well as test cases has to be done by the developer. Last but not least, one of the non-functional majorly focusing on performance, scalability, reachability, availability, where architect has to provide security architecture of the application at the same time how the application should perform, right? So performance, everything will be taken care of. Developer will take care of how this can be optimized, how the code can be optimized, right? So what are the bottlenecks that we have identified and how to fix those? All these will be done by the developer. So these are the two fundamental differences. These are the differences you see from the fundamental understanding over the role of an architect as well as a developer in the Guidewire environment.